There's a pretty common story when it comes to being a creator on YouTube. When you first start out, you're chasing views and you're using those views to define what success looks like. And you start feeling successful after it starts growing. And then you start to lose some of the passion for it because at some point you're like, more views is more views. Like, okay, what's the next big challenge here that I'm going to go after? And then it becomes more challenging because you start to see your competition. Maybe they're starting to do better than you, or they're doing something that's unique in a way that forces you to start thinking like, you really need to change your game in order to stay relevant. And then it turns from being like this thing that you love into just like a task. And then the thing that you started is no longer aligned with the heart that you started it with. And before long, it just leads to creator burnout. Today, we want to talk through some of these stages and a little bit more about what's happening when it comes to creator burnout and how we can start to address it and resolve this issue, potentially as creators ourselves.
Hey, welcome to the Video Creators Podcast presented by vidIQ. You know how you put a lot of time and energy into your YouTube channel for not nearly enough growth? Yep, we get it. We are here today to help you change that.
Hello, creators. How are you guys? It's great to see you again for another Video Creators Podcast episode. Every week, we just want to come alongside you and help you grow your YouTube channel and the business that surrounds that channel so you can continue to grow, continue to reach people and change their lives with the business and the message that you're spreading. And today, we're going to talk about one of those things that often kills that whole process. But before we get into that, joined here today by two of the YouTube strategists on our team here at Video Creators. We have Ingrid, who's the manager of Video Creators. Welcome.
Well, hello. Thanks for having me.
Hi. Yep. And Sam, who's here as well from Florida.
Howdy, howdy.
Hey, Sam.
Hey.
Howdy, howdy.
Howdy, howdy.
Howdy, howdy.
Howdy, howdy. I feel like we're in Texas now, not Florida. Real quick, we're getting close to Christmas. You guys ready?
Yep.
Oh,
I
yeah.
am. I got my red on.
Yeah.
I actually believe Ingrid, but when Sam says like, oh yeah, it feels like it's more like a Ace Ventura, type of like, oh yeah, like totally not ready. Is that right or no?
Oh, I'm 100% ready. I'm hoping for some colder weather. We had like one day of a cold front and I got excited and then it just went away. So we'll see.
Define cold front in Florida. 60?
Cold front meaning, yeah, probably about 60. Breaking out the heavy jackets. So
I'm almost ready. I just had to figure out how to buy something for my wife without using our personal debit card because otherwise she'll know what it is. So that's the only thing I got to figure out yet. Every week, I want to introduce you to a creator for a creator spotlight. A creator who's doing something on YouTube has got some input for us, some experiences that we can learn from in growing on YouTube. This week is someone that you work with. Is that right, Sam?
it is, yeah. Yeah, we've got Gabe this week. He just wrapped up going through the Video Labs program, and he's got a really cool story. He really was at a tough point coming into Video Labs with the channel, just was really frustrated. You know, he was uploading a lot of videos and just kind of would have no idea how they would perform. You know, it's kind of the classic throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks and just finding that pretty frustrating. So, you know, he had some encouraging words to say and some good takeaways after Video Labs. So here's Gabe with his story.
Before joining Video Labs, I was at the point where I was so frustrated with YouTube that I was feeling like I could quit at any minute. Just go find something way easier to do, some way easier hobby, because it felt a lot like kind of wandering aimlessly through YouTube. It was like a gamble every time I would make a video. I had no clue if it was going to perform well or if it was going to accomplish the goals that I had for the video. It was just like pulling the lever on a slot machine every time and just like crossing my fingers and hoping. So yeah, I saw an offer for Video Labs, and I had seen a bunch of reviews for it that were extremely positive. So I figured I should give it a try. I got in there, and so Video Labs like takes you through, helps you identify all the things that you were doing right and all the things that you need to change. And so I had this huge backlog, and I was able to take what I learned from Video Labs and go back through and identify all those things that I was doing really right, and then all those things that I needed to change. So just going through the course itself, I was able to just like identify a way forward, a way that I could take this channel to some actual success. And then on top of that, the Volley community, there's a community aspect to Video Labs. That was extremely helpful. That's where you can get like actual specific help for the actual specific things that you're working on. I was working on a couple projects throughout the Video Labs process, and people were able to chime in and like really get me dialed in on the things that I needed help with. So after the whole process, I feel like I have an actual direction that I need to head. And not only that, but the couple videos that I have posted throughout the process and after the process, they've been performing like 3 to 10 times better. I know now the things that I need to do to actually meet my goals on each video. So if I'm trying to get big views, I know how to do that. It's crazy. I know how to actually get big views. If I'm trying to stoke the fire in the community, I know how to do that. You know, just it's awesome. I'm working on a series right now where I'm at the end, I'm going to do like a big sell thing. So it's going to be my first like sales attempt. And pretty much just, I know it's going to work because I've gone through Video Labs. So I know what I'm doing now, and I'm just looking forward to making it rain after that one. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I've gone from frustrated with YouTube, ready to quit, to totally excited. Just looking forward to doing more.
I don't know how much of that story connected with you, but if any part of it does, in terms of like feeling like you're wandering aimlessly through YouTube, don't know what's working or when it does work, why it works and how to reproduce it. And you just kind of feel like, you know, no idea on what's going to perform. And the whole thing just feels like a big slot machine. We would love to work with you. We want to hear your story. You can go to videocreators.com/discovery call and get it to a call with Sam or Ingrid. There's a couple other people doing them, I think. And just find 15 minutes on our calendar. It's free. We just want to hear your story, hear what you're working on, hear what some of your challenges are. And if there's a way we can help you and move forward, we'll tell you what those things are. No obligation, no pressure, anything. We just want to meet you, hear your story, and talk about how we can potentially help if that makes sense for you or not. So go to videocreators.com/discovery call, and we look forward to talking with you soon. It feels like to me that burnout is becoming a bigger and bigger conversation, and I think it's good that it is. Ingrid, you pulled together some stats here. Yeah. So the ConvertKit did a poll of 2,700 content creators, yep, from Instagram, TikTok, bloggers, YouTube. Together, they're earning collectively over $66 million. Of those 2,700 creators, what was the burnout level kind of looking like?
Over the last 12 months, 63% of full-time creators felt burnt out. Of part-time creators, 60% felt burnt out. And even the hobbyists, 59% felt burnt out.
It's interesting that, like, when you're a hobby creator, I think you sometimes think once I become part-time or full-time, then this will change.
Right.
But it seems like you're more likely to be burned out if you're full-time on it than if you're a hobby. Maybe only by 4 percentage points, but slightly. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think that it's natural for it to feel that way, but I think nowadays it's no longer limited to like channels that have just millions of subscribers and millions of views. I think burnout just it has a bigger and broader definition, I feel, than what the classic definition used to be.
Which would be what?
I don't know. Before, it's like, you're doing this full time. Okay, you're on the hamster wheel, right? And I think now the struggle for smaller creators is just constantly feeling like they need to get bigger views than they have. Just because you're a small creator and you're only getting 300 views, they're still trying to get 3,000 and 30,000 and 300,000. It's not necessarily always about millions. And if they're not getting it and they're constantly needing to come up with unending creativity. They want success, and success isn't necessarily look one way, right?
Well, you think it looks a certain way and you want it to look a certain way. But I was just having a personal coaching. I do some life coaching stuff on the side, and with this creator, and this person has some big dreams and aspirations. Let me just first say this person is already very successful. Many millions of subscribers on their channel, making more money in a single deal than most people make in a year, right? So it's already very successful in terms of that. But this weird thing happens, and it's not just with creators. I think it's just life in general. This past week, I was like, hey, he feels like he's still gotta do more and perform more, and feels like needs to prove more or whatever. And so we're just like, hey, what are the goals you actually have? And we talk about those. And I'm like, you could do that right now, right? And he's like, yeah, you're right. I actually could. For this person, when they started as a creator, success for them looked like quitting a 9-to-5 that was taking him away from his family and spending more time with his family, and that their family would be making videos and having some success with that. Well, a couple of years after working very hard on that thing happened. Quit the job, started doing the thing that he wanted to. I'm trying to be pretty generic here. And now doing crazy big things. And the definition of success changes over time of what was successful when what he defined as success when they first got started no longer is success. That's actually like not even that admirable in that person's mind anymore. So it definitely changes. And I think that's part of the burnout is like, what does success look like? What does contentment look like? What does I'm enough without needing approval from other people? Like, how do I define or just feel like what I have done and what I am doing is enough and feel content in that?
Yeah, well, that's exactly like on that note. I think it's hard because YouTube is limitless and uncapped. Like you can, as hard as you want to work and make content, no one's going to stop you. So I think as a creator too, knowing your limits is sometimes difficult when it's kind of like, I can just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and creating and creating and creating, and no one's going to tell me to stop. And, your goals evolve. Like you were saying, Tim, over time, it's easy to kind of lose sight of maybe where you started, but, it's hard. Like it's really easy to get sucked into that and kind of lose sight of where we actually going here if nobody can cap that.
Well, and I feel like the desire, right? It doesn't really matter where you are, whether you have millions of, a very large channel with millions, you have a diamond play button, or you're still trying to get to that 1,000, everybody wants to have that unending pool of ideas, right? We don't want to have to struggle for that. We want success on whatever that success level is. We want to build that thriving community. We want to, whether you're a business person, maybe you want to sell courses. Maybe you're looking to fill your pipeline. Maybe it's about just coming up with the best titles and thumbnails, ideas. Maybe it's about making some AdSense or getting that brand deal. Everybody wants that on YouTube, right? In some form. The problem is to truly, truly thrive, you have to somehow find that work-life balance. And I think that is a common problem, whether you're a YouTuber or not. But kind of like what Sam said is like, there's no cap here, right? It's new. And I think that's why this is a very prevalent conversation in the last year on YouTube.
I think one issue that causes the burnout is not having a well-defined definition of success or mission, and having something like changes that's not a concrete like number, an income number that's written down on a piece of paper somewhere that you hold to for years and maybe account for inflation, but that's about it, right? Mm-hmm. There's another thing that leads to burnout, which is kind of what you were just talking about. It was like the amount of work and energy that goes into this. That's what happened for me. And not necessarily go the whole story again, but 2 years ago, my burnout issue was that, well, part of it was like it kind of felt like it lost the challenge for me. It wasn't like this new mountain I was trying to tackle anymore to climb. It was just kind of like routine at that point. But but the part that was challenging for me was that the business was growing and we were having more opportunities. And I was trying to learn all these new skills about how to lead an organization, how to manage teams and people, how to maintain alignment between everybody, and managing finances and dealing with taxes. And thankfully I had help with a lot of that stuff, but it was still a lot to just kind of manage. And so for me, it wasn't really about the creative side that got burned out. Like I can't come up with new creative ideas anymore, although that was probably true. It was more about like the load of this is, I think I'm better equipped now, but at that time, I certainly wasn't equipped to know how to handle the responsibilities and the loads and the pressure. Like what happens when your business starts making more than $1 million a year, that introduces a lot of other complexities that I didn't know were there, so it's, the burnout doesn't have to come from just one source. The success of it alone can create burnout.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Did you feel, I'm just curious because like I read somewhere that like the definition of burnout is overwhelming exhaustion or feeling detached, from what you're doing, or that you have this sense of ineffectiveness or that you're not really achieving the things that you want. Did you feel like that?
No, I didn't feel anything, which is part of the problem, but my body was carrying the stress and the pressure and the weight without me realizing it. And then I woke up in the middle of the night with a excruciating pain in my stomach. And I'm not a guy who like goes to the doctor. In fact, I couldn't go to the doctor because it's been like 6 years since I last went. And so I had to do the new patient enrollment stuff all over again. So I was going to go to the emergency room, but thankfully it subsided. And I did go then to the doctor later and re-enrolled with a different doctor because my old doctor didn't have any more room for new patients. But anyway, yeah. And that's when I started learning about how the body just kind of absorbs it. And the fact that I wasn't feeling it on an emotional level is a whole different story, but one that is also much healthier now today than it was then.
I work with a lot of creators that also kind of come up against this at different points, and I've seen it in consultations. I've heard it from students that we've worked with, or even just clients that I've worked with personally. That I think there's different seasons where sometimes you're like going for that thing, right, and you're working so hard at it that kind of like, I think you kind of touched on this earlier, Tim. You lose sight of why you're doing it in the first place. Right? Because it starts to become, like you said at the very beginning of the episode, you're looking at your competition, you're looking at what everybody else is doing, and you kind of maybe forget a little bit about the why. So if you were talking to somebody who was kind of in that place, what would be like a practical first step for them to realign themselves?
I don't know. I think it depends on if it's like a systems stress, like I can't handle the growth, or if it's I don't know how to, I have an elusive definition of success. I don't think that part has been a big deal for me, just because I think my whole like college and grad school and everything, I assumed that I was going to be making approximately what I was making. which is 14,600 a year, and doing youth and family work. That's when Dana and I got married. That's how much I was making, my annual salary. And I assumed it would be, for me, a good salary. My head would have gone up to like 40-ish a year, and that's not bad. I'm not downplaying that, but my point is that anything above that now feels like, oh, I am already way ahead of wherever I thought I was going to be by this point in my life, just because of the career change, basically. But the amount of work and being able to say no to things and being able to prioritize things and create better efficiencies, so that it actually becomes fruitful. That's what I like to focus on. But when that's not there, that's what stresses me out to the point where I burned out. But yeah, I think there can be a lot of causes for this, whether it's the pressure to post and keep up with the quote algorithms, the guy keep them happy, it's work-life balance, whether you're working alone by yourself and you don't have an emotional support from someone else, that can certainly contribute to this a lot. There can also just be just not being able to mentally disconnect from it. Even if your mind's just constantly dwelling on this, and your work is now your play is now your work, and you don't have any play anymore. Like that's a problem.
Yeah, I think we mentioned a second ago, kind of like with boundaries of. It's uncapped. You can put as much work as you want into it. And it just kind of never stops. I think boundaries can also be really helpful with not constantly be swimming in the water. I've had conversations with creators where they can't stop looking at their analytics like every 5 minutes, every single day, constantly evaluating and being so hard on themselves that I think you can use boundaries in like a work-life balance time sense, but you can also use boundaries for yourself in at what point do I step away and zoom out and not, maybe it's okay to look in my analytics and look at my newest video for, like once a day for 10 minutes or something like that. And then after that, I have a set boundary of, okay, I'm done. I'm going to step back and not be living in it constantly 24/7, because that can be just as exhausting.
Yeah, there's so many different things that cause it and triggers, and not having healthy boundaries certainly leads to fatigue, and you get negative comments, and you're comparing yourself with others, and so there's a lot that goes into it. So when you guys have been working with our clients, or even just on your own personal level, how do you guys help people through this, or what would be some ideas or thoughts that you would have to help them kind of address this?
Yeah, usually the first question I'll ask is, can you take a break? I know that there are channels where your business relies on you uploading, and maybe it's not possible for you to step back and stop uploading, but there are also a lot of creators where it's okay. I think the hamster wheel analogy is really a good picture of what it can look like. And sometimes it's you putting yourself in the hamster wheel, and there isn't anybody else forcing you to be there. And if you step back and take a break, it doesn't have to be months and months and months of not uploading content. But, if you're trying to publish every single day and you need to take a week to go on a vacation or step away, I said zoom out earlier. That always helps me personally. If I find myself, whether it's with YouTube stuff or work stuff or really anything, I start to feel kind of that burn. When you're so close to it all the time, zooming out, stepping back, just not being so zoomed into that thing it can just be so helpful. So that's the first question I ask, can you take a break? And a lot of the time, and not for everybody, but a lot of the times it's, yeah, I can do that.
The person who's in the danger zone, though, is the person who says, no, I can't take a break.
Yeah.
That's because of everything that's going on. That's when you're like, I'm concerned now,
Yeah. I find that with some creators, because I work with some larger channels, on a little bit more of a longer term. And one of the things I've actually started to give them action steps sometimes around mental health, not mental health, but creator health, because I see the signs, of not being willing to give up content to an editor, for instance, when they're just in this constant wheel of really growth and just wanting to do more and more and more. At some point, you can't do everything. So we start having the conversations around what would it look like to scale? What would it look like to unload the things that you don't like to do, or maybe that take a lot of time to do that somebody else could take over for you? And then how can you create more to help the business?
There's another side to that too, which is there's no need. You don't have to scale. You can just choose to stay small.
Oh, that's true.
Like in my personal life coaching business type stuff that I only have like a few side clients I do. I'm envisioning as I develop the skill that maybe at some point I'll have no more than 10 clients, right? And it'll just be the side gig. I think I don't want that thing to turn into, I have more people knocking at my door. Like I could hire some and train some other people to do this. And here we are right back to where I started, right? I just want it to be me delivering the service and my wife doing the books, and just keep it simple. And that's totally fine too.
I love that. And it feels like, because that's another thing is to kind of revisit your why and revisit your target audience, why you're making content in the first place, and maybe recasting your own vision. Kind of like what you said, you want it to be something different. And that looks probably very different today than it did 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
For you?
Well, yeah. And I know there are different risks. Like when 10 years ago, keeping it small meant that it was harder to manage capacity. And if it was all based on me and I lost, let's use the same 10 client number example. If I lost 5 of those people, I would be in a spot that wouldn't sustain. But if we have like 5 YouTube strategists who are all serving, let's say 10 people, and we lose 5, well, we're still okay, right? So the larger does seem to have a little bit more stability maybe to it. But where I'm at now is like, I'm doing it because I want to for fun. It's not because I need the income. I'm doing it because I enjoy helping people, pursue fruitful lives in their business and their families and their marriages and in their creative work. So if I lose 5, it's not like I'm still financially fine now at this point. And so I don't need it to play the same role as I needed it to play last time when I started Video Creators. But all that to say that there is I think a healthy place to just be like, it's just going to be small. That's all I want it to be, is doing exactly the job I want this thing to be doing for me in my life.
I think that's cool. So it's still kind of the same why, but it's okay that it's changed.
Definitely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys would say to this person to help them out?
Yeah, I think maybe just another thing is, I feel like I keep saying zooming out, but I feel like, if you do zoom out and look at the road ahead of you, maybe defining do I need to sprint for the next month before I can slow down and kind of rest? Like remembering that it's going to be a marathon and not a sprint constantly, because nobody can keep up sprinting endlessly. So I think also just looking ahead at the calendar and trying to be as proactive as possible and just seeing, okay, I'm sprinting right now. Let's look ahead and is there a point I can see where I can actually mark it on my calendar and say, this is the end of my sprint. I can take a water break and breathe and slow down at this point, because then at least you've got the date. I remember I played soccer in high school, and we would do conditioning. Like we had the same people who would show up And we knew we were going to be running as soon as we saw them. It was the absolute worst. It was like a nightmare to see these guys show up at our practices. And they, during conditioning and preseason, they would have us be doing sprints, and they wouldn't tell us when we'd be done. They would just be like, okay, keep going. We'll tell you when you can stop. And I always remember how much harder that was versus having a coach say, all right, you got 2 more, you got 1 more. Okay, you're done, kind of a thing. So not having that end in sight just makes it so much harder to keep going.
But you can't put the date on the calendar can't be 5 years from now, right? So it has to be somewhere closer. I don't know.
So what I'm hearing is having short-term goals as well as long-term goals, and then just prioritizing it.
Definitely.
Not forcing it. Yes.
Yeah. Anything for I think perfectionism is another role in this too that we didn't jump into much, that leads to burnout. I find that sometimes perfectionism leads to not even starting. So I don't know that is, but they also burn out pretty quick too, I think. Anything for the perfectionist person you guys have?
I just feel...
Other than stop it.
Well, other than stop it. Stop it. You heard it. Just stop it. Casey Neistat, I just remember him always saying that good is better than perfect. And that's hard sometimes to adopt. But once you maybe challenge yourself to do that 10 times and then reevaluate. That's your experiment, right? Good is better than perfect. If that's what you need, I give you permission to do it.
But don't most perfectionists, I'm playing devil's advocate here.
I see that.
Do they know what good is, or is like their idea of good our idea of perfect?
That's a good question.
Like,
it does. It's a great question.
Is that a perfect question though? No, kidding.
It's an okay question.
It's a good enough question.
It's an okay question.
It's a good enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. How would you define that?
I feel like I keep talking about my personal life in this podcast, but I feel like...
I like your personal life. Go ahead, Sam.
It comes to music, because you guys know I'm a guitar player. I've played for a long time. I've had great opportunities, which I'm super thankful for, to play on recordings. And when it comes to making music, especially making your own music, it's never done. I think the same thing can happen for creators with YouTube videos, where especially perfectionists, I'm a perfectionist, and it's never done. There's always something you can make better. You can always be working on it. You can always tweak it. Kind of like Tim, what you were saying, perfectionism can lead you to never upload because you're never finished. So I think what's helped me, at least in the music world, is if I'm working on a project, and this happens with YouTube too, I will get so in the zone and the flow and excited that I will just work on it and not take any breaks until it's done. But it's never done, kind of a thing. So I will force myself, another kind of boundary thing. I force myself, I'll set a timer, and then I have to get up for 5 minutes and go into another room, come back, put the headphones back in. And at least for my ears with music, it always sounds a little bit different when I come back to my work. I think the same thing can happen with a YouTube video. If you get up, leave, go outside, take a walk, come back, watch it again, you're going to see it slightly differently, and you're going to be a little more refreshed, where I think you can notice a little bit better, okay, I think this is good enough, versus just working until you can hit publish.
Well, and it's interesting too, because that kind of made me think a little bit of, just content in general. And like we think of, something that's like a discoverable video that we craft for non-subscribers, right? Those are like really, really crafted. We're solving a problem for somebody specifically, and we're getting them right into the content, and we're keeping it fast-paced, and we're engaging them to the end. So maybe that's one of those where you're putting a lot of effort in, but it's important to have balance. And this is where I'm going. Balance also of some community content, which has a different pace and a slower rhythm. And I find that those videos also take a lot less effort to edit, right? So it's kind of finding a balance maybe with everything if you're a perfectionist. And
balance is so hard, especially for perfectionists, So yeah. None of these are easy things, guys. None of these are things that you're just going to figure out. Some of them probably require therapy. Speaking from experience, honestly. So
I think the most important thing is to just remember that you did this because you wanted to have fun in the beginning, right?
Yeah. And then it stopped being fun.
Yes.
And not that it sounded like I didn't enjoy it or appreciate it, but it was like it wasn't play anymore. It wasn't my hobby. It was now my job. It was my work. And I was doing woodworking and homesteading stuff as a hobby instead. But now that we sold to vidIQ, man, I got a whole fun new mountain to climb. So
yes, you do.
It's been good.
We always like to leave you with a power tip here at the end, and YouTube has released some new features for posts on your community tab, and I absolutely love this. The goal is to really help viewers get more deeply engaged. And one of these things, this is really cool. The quizzes, it's in beta right now, but I'm excited to see this kind of play out here, especially if you are an educational channel. How powerful can it be to have little quizzes on your community tab? They're testing this with a small number of creators right now. And the other thing that you can do is you can edit imaging posts in a different way. They've improved the visuals. You can make it more engaging and a lot more fun. Now you can add filters to your images. You can add text. You can add stickers to images in the actual YouTube app. It's already been available on Android for a while. Sorry, guys. It's coming.
You're not sorry. You're rubbing it
in. You know we had to get one in somewhere.
Yeah. Android versus iOS people here. Okay.
Yep. And for those of you who are listening and you want a little bit more, especially if you're watching on YouTube, there is an interview that we did with Matt Koval about why you'll quit YouTube in 5 years, but he also helps you tell you how to avoid it. So thanks so much for watching. See you all next week. Bye.